I'm Stephanie from Back to the Passport. Today, I'm sharing what we did with our time in Kyoto. We were recently in Japan on a trip with Go Ahead Tours, the Cherry Blossoms in Japan, Tokyo to Kyoto tour. And when all was said and done, we spent about 2.5 days in Kyoto. We took the bullet train from Odawara to Kyoto, and luckily got to see Mount Fuji on the way there, as we didn't get to see it during our overnight stay in the Mount Fuji region. The ride was about 2 hours, and we were so excited to be greeted by lovely spring weather compared to the rain we were experiencing in Tokyo. We got checked into our hotel and reunited with our big suitcases as they were shipped from Tokyo to make it easier getting on and off the train. And then we made the trek over to the Pokemon store, like mature adults do. Not gonna lie, I bought a super cute stuffed Pikachu, some candy, and souvenirs for my other nerdy friends. We then strolled back toward the hotel looking for a place to eat, and funnily enough, stopped at the last place before our hotel, and then later heard our tour director tell us how great and popular this place was. So I guess we picked well. We enjoyed a delicious ramen dinner and some cold beers. I mean, seriously, this was probably the best umami ramen I have ever had. We then walked half a block back to our hotel and went to bed as we had a full day of exploring Kyoto ahead of us the next day. Our first full day in Kyoto started off with a mindful Zen meditation session. We were led through 2 sessions and then given a sweet treat and some green tea. Rick said that this was his favorite thing we did on the trip, and it was a very unique experience, and I'm glad we got to do it. We were then supposed to take the Philosopher's Walk to see the blossoms, but our tour director changed our plans as the cherry blossoms weren't in bloom there yet, so instead we went to the Imperial Palace and were greeted by the sight of stunning cherry blossom trees. After walking the grounds and taking approximately 600 photos, it was time to move on to our next activity, a visit to the Golden Pavilion. We did make a quick stop at a convenience store to pick up a to-go lunch to eat on the bus, as we didn't really have time in our itinerary for a sit-down lunch. We then stopped at Kinkakuji, and apologies if I'm butchering that, also known as the Golden Pavilion. I got that one. We walked the grounds, got pictures of the gorgeous temple, and had time to get some souvenirs. Since the weather was finally in our favor, it was warm enough to warrant trying some green tea ice cream, which was quite tasty. Next up was a visit to Nijo Castle. This castle is famous for its nightingale floors due to the sound that the floors make as people walk on them. It was pretty neat and unlike anything I'd ever seen or heard before. The castle was gorgeous, and the different rooms were stunning. The building is considered a national treasure as it was built in 1603. We had some free time to explore the buildings on our own and go get some snacks or souvenirs. Rick and I ended up walking the grounds and found a beautiful garden, and then happened across a dance festival that was taking place on the grounds. We watched a few performances and then made our way back to the meeting point. Our tour director detoured from the itinerary a bit and added a stop at Fushimi Inari Shrine, which was perfect as I really wanted to see the torii gates here. We had about 45 minutes to walk the trail and battle the crowds, though I will say it did thin out the further we walked, and it was a very neat experience and made for stunning photos of our time in Kyoto. That night was one of our friends' birthdays, and our tour director had helped us book a dinner at a nice sushi restaurant, Sushi Momonoki. We had our own little private booth room and were served a multi-course dinner. It was an exceptional meal where we had sashimi, nigiri, roe, tofu, sushi rolls, egg custard, and then this really tasty matcha gelée dessert. After dinner, it was time to roll ourselves back to the hotel and into bed for a full-day adventure outside of Kyoto the next day. The next morning, we had a little day trip to Nara for some sightseeing and, of course, to feed the deer at Nara Park. Our day did start with a visit to the Buddhist Todaji Temple, where we saw the giant Buddhas and spotted some gorgeous cherry blossom trees. The temple dates back to 752, and unfortunately the temple that is here today is a reconstruction built in 1692 and is only 2/3 of the original size, which is crazy as this building and the Buddhas inside it are huge. In fact, the bronze Buddha inside sits at almost 50 feet tall. The temple did hold the record for the world's largest wooden building for many years. Next up was the main attraction, feeding the deer in Nara Park. I think it was like 200 yen for a stack of rice crackers to feed the deer. And trust me, they know when you have them. One tried taking a bite out of Rick's shorts, my blazer was nibbled on, and you basically have to show your palms to let them know that you're out of food. But they are so cute when they come up and bow to you to get fed. We then had an included lunch that day, complete with rice, tempura shrimp, salad, tofu, and a dessert. It was a nice light lunch, and then we were dropped off at this shopping mall arcade area, though Rick and I went and explored and came across a cool temple before buying some Mitarashi dango, again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing any of that we had seen on the show Somebody Feed Phil. The bus then took us back to our hotel in Kyoto for a free night, or there was an optional excursion of a tea ceremony. We opted not to do the excursion that night, which turned out to be a good idea as we kind of heard mixed reviews about the experience. Rick and I ended up walking to the Gion neighborhood on our own to visit the temple and see the famous home of the geishas. It was about a 45-minute walk from our hotel, and it was a beautiful night. We strolled along the river and enjoyed our free time in the city. We then met up with some friends at the Nintendo store for some souvenir shopping before heading out for our steak dinner that night. Our tour director had recommended we do this while in Kyoto, and I'm so glad we did. I'm glad he was also able to call the restaurant on our behalf, which was the Kobe Harborland Sendaya, and book a table for us. I got a delicious plate of Wagyu beef on a sizzling plate, and this steak just melted in my mouth. It was a fantastic meal, and we highly recommend it. Our last day in Kyoto was designated as a free day, but on our tour we did miss some of the activities in the Mount Fuji region due to some terrible weather, so our tour director added on some activities for us this morning, so we hopped on the bus and headed just outside the city for a mochi making class. Let's just say I should keep my day job, but Rick and one of our friends could easily get jobs at the factories and create beautiful, edible works of art. We then had an included lunch not too far from our mochi making session, and it was a fabulous meal and set in a super cute restaurant with huge windows that overlooked a garden. The restaurant was a no-shoes place, and you just put your shoes in a locker and took your key. We had some rice with little prawns, sashimi, soup, tofu, and a delightful pound cake for dessert. I ended up stealing some of the extras. That afternoon, we were booked on the Arashiyama District and Okochi Sanso Garden excursion. We both really enjoyed this. The bamboo forest was busy, but beautiful. And once we made it to the Zen garden, it was pretty much just our tour group exploring the grounds. It was very tranquil and a very nice escape from the crowds. We then moved on to visit the Tenryuji Temple, which is listed as one of Kyoto's 5 great temples. The temple dates back to 1339 and is situated among beautiful gardens, where we saw some blooming cherry blossoms, and a peaceful body of water, and plenty of walking paths. That night was our farewell dinner in Kyoto, and we went to a hot pot restaurant. It was definitely a unique experience, and we got some complimentary sake, but it was also bittersweet, as it meant our Japan tour was coming to an end. That night, our tour director took anyone interested over to the Gion district, but since Rick and I had gone on our own the night before, we decided just to go back to the hotel so we could start packing and figuring out just where in the hell we would fit all of our souvenirs to bring them home. We both loved our time in Kyoto and cannot wait to go back. If you have any recommendations of what we need to do next time or what other cities we should visit, we do already have Osaka on our list. Please leave your recs in the comments below. You can find more of our content on our blog over at backtothepassport.com. Thanks for watching. Ciao!